Hi there everyone. Today I felt like talking about InuYasha again because I will never lose interest in InuYasha, guys. It's my favorite anime, so my friend will be joining us. Say hello to Mr. Koala. Mrs. Koala and her baby. Alright, so today's topic is Kikyo because I was cosplaying her pretty recently. Well, last year, but it was around November, I think so. It's recent in my mind. And I do this thing that when I'm cosplaying a character, I want to get really into character. I made a video like 2 or 3 years ago where I was talking about Kagome and Kikyo, like whether or not they were the same person, blah blah blah. But I thought, since I've already made a video about Kagome also 2 years ago, more or less, it was time to make one about Kikyo, because she's definitely my third favorite character in the series, the order being Kagome, Sango, and Kikyo. So let's talk about her and why I like her and what I think about her. Alright, and just to be clear, I'm gonna be talking about Kikyo before she died, not after, because we need to consider that, Kikyo after death wasn't really her. Like, it was a version of her. I'm talking the Kikyo before she tragically died, when she was only 19 years old. I believe she was when she died. The thing with Kikyo is that she teaches us a very valuable lesson in acceptance. What I mean by this is that I wouldn't really say I believe in destiny 100%, but it's clear that in the InuYasha world, destiny is a very big deal. So Kikyo went against her destiny because she knew she was meant to protect the jewel, to be a priestess her entire life, and there wasn't really anything she could do to change this. But when she met InuYasha and she fell in love with him, that's when she wanted to change what was supposed to be her life and what was supposed to be her destiny. And that's the moment when things started to go wrong, because I've also heard it said that InuYasha is a story about wishes, and it's really true. Like, wishes are a central theme in the InuYasha story, and the phrase "be careful what you wish for" is also like it has a very strong presence in the series, and especially with Kikyo, because for her wish to be an ordinary woman was what ended her life ultimately. And so what we can take from this is the fact that when there's a path that you need to go on and that you feel is right for you, because Kikyo never opposed the idea of being a priestess. Like, I think, of course, she would look at other women who weren't priestesses and would sometimes long for a different life, like we all do. We all wish for something different than what we have sometimes, but it wasn't on her mind, the idea of giving up the priestess position before she met InuYasha. So it was that love, that desire for InuYasha, that eventually caused her to wish for a different life. What I'm trying to say is not that she did the wrong thing, because ultimately she did what she had to do. She had to choose this path and eventually die for her soul to learn the lesson through another person. But the thing is, Kikyo, as Kikyo, couldn't get that life that she wanted for herself, because that wasn't her path. That wasn't what was supposed to happen. And I think this is a lesson in radical acceptance, a term that I've heard often online, which is that you really need to accept everything that happens to you and stop questioning whether or not it's fair, whether or not it should or shouldn't happen. Because what you're doing by doing this is only making it harder and making the situation even more painful for you than it already is. Life is always a trade-off. There's some things you have to sacrifice in order to get others, and I think not all of us are meant to experience the same things in this life. Sometimes people throw around this phrase that you get what you deserve, or everyone deserves to have this or that or whatever. No, that's not the way it works. I think this is the harsh reality that we have to wake up to when we get older. That just because we are a good person and we do things more or less right and try to be a decent human being, that doesn't guarantee anything. That doesn't mean we deserve anything or we'll get anything. Because we should be deserving of those things just because we are alive. Like, just being alive, and of course not being a bad person, should be a guarantee that you'll get at least the minimum required to survive and to more or less prosper in life, and it's not. So many people die every day without any chance of possibly changing anything in their lives, and it's very depressing to think about. But going back to Kikyo, what she teaches us is that radical acceptance, because the moment she accepted her, what her destiny was, which was to be a priestess, then it was when she could rest in peace. Because the moment she died, her final death, the moment she passed away, or her clay and bones version passed away, in that moment she is able to rest in peace because she accepts the fact that she cannot be with InuYasha. She says she became an ordinary woman because she no longer has to be a priestess, but it's because she's dead. So she has to give up everything. And in a sense, it's like she's accepting everything. She's accepting the fact that she had to die 50 years ago and that she has to die again now as this clay and bones version. And so I hope you're following me so far. But yes, the main idea I'm trying to get across is that through watching Kikyo suffering so much, I got this lesson out of it, that the only way to get rid of all the suffering, all the pain, all the struggle in life is through radically accepting every situation, every tribulation that life gives us, and also trying to not attach so much meaning to it, to not judge situations as fair or unfair, because you can say life is unfair. It's been really unfair to so many people, and it will continue to be. But what does that do? That doesn't do anything. That just creates even more resentment and anger inside you, and you start feeling bitter and angry, and you don't want that, because I've been there. I've been very angry, resentful, spewing out insults and complaints and stuff, and I don't want to be like that anymore. And when I remember Kikyo, when I remember how she was before she died, that's what I aspire to be. I aspire to be that kind of compassionate, kind, composed woman that she was, even if she, of course, was dealing with repression. She couldn't fully express herself. I would much rather be how Kikyo was before she died, than after, because after she died, she was dealing with so much anger, so much resentment, so much hatred. There's things that are not meant to be for us. There's things that are not meant to happen. And whatever you believe in a greater force, greater power, higher power, whatever you find useful to keep going and to believe in that things happen for a reason, because sometimes it's hard to believe that. But whatever the reason is behind everything that happens, you should not waste any time wallowing in anger and in resentment and in wishes that are eventually just a waste of time, because wishing for things to be different when they cannot be different because they are the way they are. I'm not talking about things you can change. Of course, if you can change them, try to change them. But I love that InuYasha does such a good job, the series, of showing that through characters like Kikyo especially. She's like the embodiment of what happens when you let yourself go too far, too deep into wishes and into thinking that things should be completely different than they are when they shouldn't. And deep down you know that they can't be different, because that's your destiny or your fate or whatever you want to call it. And that may be depressing and may not be very empowering, but I think it's the way life is. So those are my thoughts on Kikyo, my third favorite character in InuYasha. I really love her, and I love what she represents, like pre-dying, before she dies. Like she's like the representation of kindness, and I love the way that's reflected in Kagome, which doesn't mean that I believe they are the same person. I don't believe that, but their essence, their kindness, their pure heart is the same. And that's what I admire the most about these two characters, and specifically about Kikyo. I admire the way she takes care of everyone, even when she herself is struggling and is feeling sad or whatever. I admire the way she, even though in the end she didn't accept her fate, I admire the way she tried her best to protect everyone around her, and even the person she loved, because ultimately, she didn't kill InuYasha because she loved him so much. And that's very telling of the nature of her heart.